she had come on a couple visits, and she was like a big name in Iowa. So I had heard about her. I wasn't from Iowa, so I didn't know as much. And that like all Iowa Attack like AAU program is like so big, and I had I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, whatever. But it's like a big thing in Iowa. And so I had heard about this Caitlin Clark, and I was like watching videos of her just like having like 40 points, like averaging a million in high school. And I was like, oh, this girl thinks she's gonna come here and rule the world, you know, like whatever.
WNBA legend Sue Bird just called out Caitlin Clark, and she didn't hold back. While fans are anxiously waiting for Clark's return from a groin injury, Bird went straight for the truth on her podcast Bird's Eye View, and the message was crystal clear. This is Caitlin Clark's biggest problem.
Caitlin Clark is going to miss tonight's game, and she's got a groin injury. I have been banging the drum online and on here for the last 2 weeks saying there's something wrong with her legs. There's something going on. Is it the nagging quad injury? But it's something to do with the lower half of her body. It is a groin injury. Now we've got an idea of why she's struggling from long range, where it requires...
That's right. The GOAT point guard, four-time champion, and Team USA icon is throwing down real talk about what's holding Clark back. And honestly, she's not wrong. Bird's words cut deep. Not as hate, but as wisdom from someone who's been there. Let's break down exactly what Bird said, why she's right, and what it means for Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the rest of the WNBA going forward. Sue Bird didn't hesitate when talking about Caitlin Clark's workload. She said it flat out. Clark is creating too much, too often, and all by herself. And that's exactly what we're seeing every game. Clark isn't just scoring, she's orchestrating the entire offense, drawing defenders, pushing the pace, and dishing out nearly 9 assists per game. That's insane for any player, let alone a second-year guard in a physical league with almost no breathing room.
All right, enough is enough. You know, at some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. You know, it is something that since the beginning, I've kind of like backed off on because physical play is a part of sports. You know, going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports.
Bird, a master of the floor game, understands what it takes to play the position at a high level. She saw what Clark was doing and what she wasn't getting in that Seattle game. Clark had to work for every shot. Every single bucket felt like a solo mission. Why? Because she doesn't have other creators around her. No one is getting her open. No one is taking pressure off. That's what Bird zeroed in on, the lack of support. Bird didn't bash Clark. She respected the grind, but she made it very clear. This isn't sustainable. The way Indiana is using Clark is draining her, and it's affecting her efficiency, her health, and her long-term impact. Sue's message? Get this woman some help before it's too late.
Well, as you can imagine, the fallout has begun. The Indiana Fever are literally taking what looks like the most valuable women's athlete asset that has come around in I don't know how many years. Certainly for women's basketball, they are taking this asset, an asset that I contend is worth more than every player in the WNBA combined. I'm keeping it real. All right, that's the draw, that's the aura, that's the brand. She is the WNBA. I've said, I contend she ought to be, her three-point shot should have already been changed. That should be the logo.
Let's look past the highlight reels for a second. Clark is averaging 18.2 points and 8.9 assists, which is elite on paper. But the deeper numbers tell a more concerning story. She's shooting just 39% from the field and a painful 29.5% from three. That's a far cry from the sniper we saw in college. Why? Because she's exhausted. She's forcing shots, and she's taking hits on every possession because she's always in attack mode, alone.
The league undefeated, now defeated, New York Liberty, New York Liberty. Stephanie White did not blow this game. I was getting nervous. I put on Twitter, okay, we're going into the fourth, up by 9. Let's stay aggressive here. Let's not pull back. And much to the credit of Caitlin Clark, this team won a massive, massive game. It was not without flaws, believe it or not. If I wanted to, we could really get into it, but we won't as much. Number one of the greatest single half performances I've ever seen in basketball.
Sue Bird nailed it. When you're creating all your own looks, your efficiency drops. The WNBA is faster, stronger, and smarter than college. There's no room to operate freely without help. And Clark is stuck doing double duty, being the scorer and the creator. That's not just hard, it's draining her, and her numbers are proof. The solution, Bird knows it. Clark needs a backcourt partner who can get her easy looks. Someone who lets her play off ball, someone who can absorb some of the defensive focus. Until that happens, Clark will keep shouldering a weight that even legends like Bird would struggle to carry for an entire season. Sue Bird didn't just criticize Caitlin Clark's situation, she also offered a solution. That's the difference between legends and loudmouths. Bird pointed directly at Ari McDonald and said, "This might be the answer." And honestly, she's right. Ari McDonald has the potential to completely shift the dynamic of Indiana's offense, not just for the team, but for Clark herself. McDonald is everything Clark doesn't have in the backcourt right now. Speed, aggression, ball handling, and the confidence to initiate offense.
So the Indiana Fever finally made a signing. They just signed their very first hardship player in the last 2 seasons in Ari McDonald. They had Dantas on a suspended contract last year, but for the first time in 2 years, the Indiana Fever have signed somebody on a hardship. And it's not a bad player. Like, it's really not. She's really not a bad player. And I stand by this, like, as far as, like, level of player is concerned, Ari McDonald is probably as good as they can get. It's as good as the Fever can get. Look, I think there are situations where Ari McDonald doesn't necessarily fit beside Kelsey or Caitlin. Well, I think she can fit beside Caitlin. She can play off the ball. She can play at the 2.
In her return to Indiana, McDonald logged 6 assists in her second game. And that's huge. Up until then, no one on the Fever roster was consistently averaging more than 4 assists besides Clark. That's a problem. Clark has been the engine, the wheels, and the driver, all in one. Now she might finally have someone else to take the wheel for a few possessions. What McDonald does is force defenses to react. She drives, she kicks, she breaks defensive sets, and that opens up everything. Suddenly, Clark doesn't have to force pull-up threes off the dribble. She can move off ball, find her spots, and step into cleaner looks. The kind that made her a college sensation. Bird sees it. Clark isn't just a point guard. She's a pure hooper. She needs the freedom to play on or off the ball depending on what the defense gives her. If the Fever are smart, and if Coach Stephanie White is listening, they'll lean into this combination. Let McDonald take on a heavier creation load. Let Clark conserve energy for the fourth quarter. Let both of them feed off each other. Because if this chemistry clicks, Indiana might finally have a backcourt that rivals the best in the league.
I don't see her not being on. Well, I don't see her not being on the team long term. I can see them trying. So they've signed her on an emergency hardship, which basically means as soon as Coulson or as soon as Caitlin's back, she's gone. Because I think Sophie's going to be out for, say, let's just say hypothetically, Sophie, she's not wearing anything on her ankle and she's walking in flip-flops. She's probably out for 2 to 3 weeks. So Sophie's out for 2 to 3 weeks. And now they're down to 9 with Caitlin and Coulson gone. Whichever of Caitlin or Sid Coulson come back, if I'm not mistaken, whichever of those two come back first.
Let's get brutally honest. The Indiana Fever have fumbled this rebuild. They drafted Caitlin Clark and acted like that was enough. One player, one talent, one superstar to solve all problems. That's not a rebuild. That's a shortcut. and Sue Bird knows it. That's why her message was more than a tactical observation. It was a warning. No one knows better than Bird what it takes to win in this league. She's played with legends, she's built dynasties, and she's seen firsthand how bad front offices sabotage good players by isolating them and expecting miracles. That's what Indiana has done to Clark, made her the focal point without building a real structure around her. No consistent shooters, no secondary playmakers, no reliable veteran guard to guide her through the rough patches. Bird didn't just say, Clark needs help. She said, Clark's being set up to fail if this keeps up. And she's right. The constant double teams, the non-stop playmaking load, the 35-plus minutes a night, it's too much. Even the best point guards in history didn't carry that kind of burden alone. Look around the league. The successful teams have balance. Look at Vegas, Wilson, Gray, Plum. Look at New York, Ionescu, Stewart, Vandersloot. Now look at Indiana. It's Clark or bust. That's not team basketball. That's a desperate gamble. Bird's comments should hit Indiana's front office like a punch in the gut. If they don't surround Clark with real weapons, not just bench pieces, but starting-level talent, they're not just wasting her rookie contract. They're draining her physically and mentally, and that kind of burnout can derail even the most promising careers. This might be the most important part of the entire conversation.
I've fully watched all of Magic, all of Bird, all of Chuck, all of Jordan, Ewing, Olajuwon, all of them. It was one of the best halves. It was in the top 5 best offensive halves of basketball I've ever seen. All right, and keep in mind, Caitlin Clark just scored 25 points, and the quarters in the WNBA are shorter, not as long, as the quarters in the NBA. What she did in the first half, shooting those threes, she ended on tied for her career best. She was 7 of 14, and at one point, she was like 7 for 9 or something ridiculous. 11 of 20. She still played 31 minutes.
Sue Bird's comments weren't just insightful, they were timely. Clark is on the edge of a cliff right now. Physically, she's been injured twice this season already. The quad, now the groin. Mentally, she's carrying the weight of an entire league's expectations. And strategically, she's being used in a way that maximizes stress and minimizes longevity. Bird knows what this crossroads looks like. She's been there. She's seen it with other young stars. And she's basically waving a red flag for Indiana. Change the system before it's too late. Because if Clark continues to be overused, misused, and unsupported, she won't just lose games, she could lose years off her career. This is the WNBA's most marketable player, its most talked about rookie in history, and its best shot at reaching a new generation of fans. But without the right infrastructure, that moment could disappear. Bird's call-out is an opportunity, a moment for the Fever and the league to pivot. To admit that what they've been doing isn't working. To give Clark the resources to thrive, not just survive. And for Clark, this could be her light bulb moment, a chance to realize that saying, "I need help," isn't weakness, it's leadership. It's the mindset of someone who wants to win sustainably. If she and McDonald build chemistry, if the Fever rework their offensive system, if they start building like a franchise instead of freelancing through every game, we could be witnessing the beginning of something massive. Bird didn't criticize to tear Clark down. She spoke out to wake everyone up. And if the message lands, it could be the moment everything changes.
Yeah, I feel like looking back on it, and then even just talking to you now, it's like, yes, Caitlin is like a big focal point of the team.
Yeah.
She's gonna have to do a lot of the scoring, all the things. And it's almost like good cop, bad cop or something.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean it in like
No,
literal terms, but she just had to like be herself, and that
Yeah.
was gonna win you games. But
Yeah.
then you had to come in and kind of be like a calming
Yeah.
effect. And so I'm actually really curious, as these teams start to take shape,